Hey guys, Jason here. Welcome to another video here on the channel. And today we're going to be doing another Five Finger Death Punch album review. Um, we're going to be talking about the third album from Five Finger Death Punch, American Capitalist, which came out in 2011. And I realized in the last video I forgot to say when Moore's The Answer came out. And that came out in 2009. So 2009, 2011. So yeah, third album from Five Finger Death Punch, American Capitalist. Um, we have 12 tracks. We have one deluxe track. Technically we have some remixes, but I'm not going to really count those. Um, in the playlist that I'm going to share, it doesn't actually include the one deluxe track, but still, whatever. I'll still talk about it. So, without further ado, let's actually get into the video. So, this is where Five Finger Death Punch, they start to have better production. This is where I think they truly found their sound. And this is where we also get the addition of Chris Cale, um, into the band. Uh, this is his first album with the band. And speaking of which, I actually got the pleasure of out of 2022 Five Finger Death Punch concert to meet Chris Cale, and I got a signed vest by him somewhere. I don't know where the fuck it is, but it was really really cool. I got to meet the dude. He was very nice. He was a very nice, cool dude. Um, but yeah, enough talking about Chris Cale. Well, we'll talk about him uh, uh, about halfway through the album. But enough talking about Chris Cale and how cool of a bassist and how cool of a dude he is. Let's actually get into the album. So, first, we start off with the title track with American Capitalist. And this sort of just hits you right in the face with a beginning intro groovy chug riff. It starts off with that sort of riff. Sort of reminds you of like Salvation, which is a track that was on the Way of the Fist. So yeah, American Capitalist. Then we get um, with that song, that chug riff, sort of in like the um, main part of the song. The verses really shows that sort of style. You get a mix of screaming and clean singing. And then we get Under and Over It, which I like to call the American Capitalist knockoff, because that's sort of what it feels like. It's sort of the exact same tempo, just with a different sort of riff at the beginning. Um, and this is like a more well known Five Finger Death Punch song, but I don't know. It sort of feels like sort of feels like a little bit like the American Capitalist sort of knockoff track, but um, screaming in the verses, clean singing in the choruses, and guitar solo from Jason Hook is great on this song. Then we get the Pride. Okay, so the Pride, yeah, I like the music of this song, like especially Ivan's sort of what you call it, like the yeah, that part of the song. And then yeah, music of the song is great. I don't really care for the lyrics, but yeah, don't really care for the lyrics on this one that much. I do like that it references Dimebag Darrell from Pantera. That's pretty cool. And Ivan has even gone on record to say that Pantera is one of his favorite bands. So yeah, Tupac reference in there. I do like that, but I don't know. I just lyrics sort of felt cringe, but it's not the worst thing in the world, and it's not even really the worst Five Finger Death Punch song I've heard. But then we get to Coming Down. Um, Coming Down is one of the first sort of ballads on this album, and I will say that this is where Five Finger Death Punch really, really starts to embrace that sort of roller coaster sound. They sort of did it on More's the Answer, but American Capitalist is really where they found it. Um, their the Pride, or I mean not the Pride, Coming Down, um, really, really good song. Really sort of emotional sort of track. Um, the chorus is great. The sort of acoustic section is great. Um, then we get Menace, which is a very, very heavy track. I remember when I first heard it, I remember when I first heard it when I was first sort of getting into Five Finger Death Punch, and I was first getting into it, and sort of like when I first heard, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Um, because this was sort of before I even knew about more metal bands and started getting into more metal music. But I was sort of like, "What the hell?" Because it was very heavy, but it was even in a different like time signatures, which is very rare for Five Finger Death Punch to do. This is Menace is probably one of their most, and I don't even want to really want to call it technical either, but it's very rare that you would see a Five Finger Death Punch song in a different time signature besides 4/4, and they did it with this, and it worked really well, actually. Um, Sort of the same sort of formula as we got on American Capitalist and Under and Over, with the screaming in the verses and the singing in the choruses, and the guitar solo is great on this song. The drumming is great on this song. Um, then we get a sort of middle of the road track, mid tempo track with Generation Dead, and we get a really cool bass um, bass intro in this track. Shout out Chris Kale. We get a really cool bass sort of intro, and we go into the main song. Um, the riff of this song is great. The guitar solo is great. Of course, it's just sort of the normal, I would say, mid tempo Death Punch, but it's not as it's not as well known as other songs. It's sort of an underrated track, sort of an underrated gem. But then we get Back for More, which is sort of a faster sort of um, thing. Um, Sort of like a hype track, I would say, in my opinion. That's really what it boils down to. It sort of feels like a hype track. I don't know why, but that's how I feel about it. Um, it's like we're all tough, but and sometimes stuff can really let us down, but we still stay in the fight, and we'll always brush it off and come back for more. Um, and yeah, really cool. Like that a lot. Then we oh yeah, and I forgot to talk about in that song the riff after the chorus that leads into the guitar solo, which is um, accompanied by that riff. Really cool. Really sick riff there. But then we get Remember Everything, which is also very emotional, like another ballad. Um, Slower Five Finger Death Punch song is pretty well known. Um, but they don't play it live anymore. And then we get Wicked Ways, um, another sort of mid tempo, sort of underrated gem um, that people sort of forget about. Um, I don't know, nothing really to say about this. This is also good. Then we get If I Fall, which has an acoustic intro, but then we get heaviness, and chorus of this song is really, really good. The bridge where Ivan does um, the sort of other it sort of remind the bridge sort of reminds me of Can't Heal You, with the sort of same vocal technique that Ivan does on that song. He does it sort of on this, um, mixed with sort of a guitar lead, which makes the track just sound pretty epic for a Five Finger Death Punch song. Um, and this song and a lot of the songs in American Capitalist just sort of feel like 2010s sort of rock songs, like especially this. Um, Definitely, this is definitely what it feels like to be in the 2010s. Then we end with a fucking rager with 100 Ways to Hate, which is the fastest song on the album, the heaviest song on the album, and the intro riff is really cool. Um, Guitar solo and drumming is really cool. The chorus is really cool because it's still sort of melodic ish. Um, but what a way to end the album. Then for the deluxe, which I will say this song, Tragic Truth. Um, I will say that the Tragic Truth, that song, has recently become a more well known track because I think it was 2022. I don't exactly remember, but it got a music video for it. But before that, it was always a very, very, very underrated song to hear by to know by Five Finger Death Punch. I wouldn't say it is underrated as the stuff from like War's the Answer or The Way of the Fist Deluxe, but it's more of an underrated track. Like you would only really know it if you're a Five Finger Death Punch fan, but now I don't know, it still sort of has that sort of way, but it's become very more well known ever since it's gotten a music video for the song. And so yeah, um I'm glad that they made that track more um I'm glad that they brought awareness to that track again because it is a really, really good song. Um Again, that also just feels like a 2010s sort of just hard rock metal song. Guitar solo is great. The chorus with the mix of the singing and screaming. Um, the verses, it sort of feels more like a verses sort of make it feel more like a ballad. The guitar lead and the intro and the main riff is so good with the acoustic guitar added to the song, and everything about it just it makes it really good. And so yeah, no covers on this album to talk about, but I will say this is not the top Five Finger Death Punch albums for me. Um, I don't know. For whatever I used to have this album, it always switches. Wrong Side of Heaven, Righteous Hell Volume 2 and this album are sort of the middle of the road albums for me. They're not in the worst albums by Five Finger Death Punch, but they're not in the best albums for me either. It's the middle of the road. American Capitalist and Wrong Side of Heaven, Righteous Hell Volume 2. But it always changes, I feel like. They always switch. Um, and for a while, I had American Capitalist below it. But I'm going to put, I think, now that I really think about it, I don't know. I feel like I don't know, it goes above Wrong Side of Heaven, Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 2 for me. Um, and again, that might change right after I record this video. But for now, that's where it's going to go. And that's where it's going to probably be for a little bit. Um, But yeah, what a good album. I'll link the playlist in the description of this video, and go check out the album. And yeah, well, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.